second Jerusalem. In Christian theology, the idea is that the New Jerusalem will come down from heaven. And we look so much to this esoteric that we fail to see it when it starts to plainly happen right in front of our eyes in a way that maybe we didn't anticipate. So what am I saying? Obviously, Isaiah 28 is talking about the time when Ephraim is in charge. If you don't know much about the genealogy of things, that's definitely the case in Britain and the United States. So this isn't talking about the Jerusalem in Isaiah 28 in the Middle East, in Palestine, in the Holy Land. It's talking about the second Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, we might be on the verge of something very spectacular here. Again, as I've said, we can go one of two ways. This is the dividing time. This is when you will see these demons separate from those who have the law of perfect liberty in their hearts and minds. Those people and the demons who support Luciferian doctrine, the NWO, even the Democratic National Party, all those things. It's there. I'm not saying the Republicans are perfect. Obviously, they're not. And I don't mean it that way. I don't trust them either. But this division is definitely happening. So I'll leave that with you today. Vault 17 is very important. There's going to be a lot more of this because the evil will not stop doing what they're doing. They can't. It's part of their nature. They refuse to repent. They will not repent. Ever. They only understand one thing: force. And there are those now in the know who are doing what I've asked. They're calling for the destruction, at least the takedown of the CIA, raiding it, and then seizing all the information and really doing a thorough investigation of what's happened here. We'll see how that turns out. But this is going to be a big war. It could very easily turn into a shooting fight depending upon the circumstances. Hi ladies and gentlemen, this is March 8th, 2017, and the first thing I want to show you is that yes, I do have the horrible whiteboard, as you've noticed in the past. You know, some universities have taken that out and have banned them because first of all they're white, and second of all you can leave messages that the PC and leftist crowd don't like. Okay, if they leave messages, but the conservatives can't, or whatever, you know. So anyway, I wanted to point out that I'm not being PC and I'm going to keep my whiteboard. All right. Vault 7, a lot of things going on. I had an interesting communication with a gentleman, and I hope he won't mind me talking about it. I'm not going to mention his name because I didn't ask if I could. But at any rate, he used to be a law enforcement, let's say documents investigator. Not quite that, but close enough. And he brought up some points about, well, WikiLeaks in general, but particularly this Vault 7 release. And he's not off the mark. He's actually right on. He's absolutely correct. He pointed out that they talked about crowdsourcing. Now, first of all, that can be a problem. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad depending upon how the WikiLeaks people view their crowdsourcing. Maybe they mean they just were collecting information from a lot of different places. I'm not sure what their intent was. His feeling on it was that they had not vetted the information, they had not reviewed it. And that's a possibility. So that's warning number one. And the other is that there apparently is some possibility, of course, anytime you deal with intelligence information, that you're being played. Even WikiLeaks, even intelligence people get played, obviously. So there's an old Reagan saying, right? Trust but verify. And that's very true, and it should hold true with WikiLeaks as well. In addition, there's a lot of information that they could put forward that they've been given legitimately or obtained legitimately, but might have what I'm going to term disinformation, misinformation, time bombs. In other words, when you're trying to control things, you can't give 100% false information. Well, the fake news does all the time, but consider their audience. We're talking about people here who are going to look at intelligence summaries and communications and things like that, cables, etc. So if you have some bad information you want to get out there that you can then say, point out later and say, look, you believe this stuff and it wasn't true, so you're discredited. See what can happen there? So in all of this information they can put out a disinformation, misinformation time bomb that at the time of their choosing they can pull the trigger and say, see, it's all bad because you quoted that too. First of all, that's not true. That doesn't make it all false, first of all. And second of all, those things are going to happen and you just have to be aware of them. And you call them out when you see them. It's kind of like what the news media did here to Trump just a little while ago, and it is continuing. They're the ones that pushed all this wiretapping narrative that they got the information, and Hillary Clinton, all these people say, yeah, we know because we found it on these wiretaps and these things of Trump, the communications he's had with the Russians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then when Trump came back on, they said, well, we never said that we did any wiretaps. We didn't say that. We didn't say we were listening or anybody was listening. It's a gaslighting situation, and unless you're really having some long-term memory, you have a tendency to forget that. And the mainstream media, the fake stream media, knows that their audience has a very short-term memory by and large. And there was another gentleman that I saw that had some concerns about WikiLeaks, and his had to do with what Apple was saying about these backdoors that they have been patching. Well, the information, of course, Apple's going to continue to patch. So just because Apple can say they've patched these different security problems doesn't mean they didn't exist or that new ones aren't being, put out through the intelligence agencies and their surrogates out there. So at any rate, I just wanted to bring that up. We just need to be aware that these things are happening and try not to get sucked into a disinformation, misinformation campaign. I wanted to remind you that Trump did something really good. You remember when the MIAC report came out and the DHS and the Department of Justice and the FBI and the military, all these people were classifying not Islamic terrorists as terrorists, but Christians, gun owners, veterans, returning veterans, conservatives, etc., etc. In other words, our own citizens, who are exercising their God-given constitutionally protected rights. Those are the people they were calling terrorists. Well, Donald Trump has reversed that now. And he said, wipe all that out, all that's gone. We're going to say what it is. It's radical Islamic terrorism. And I wouldn't even call it radical. And that's the bug with people like Obama and stuff like that. He's trying to say that, no, you're saying that they're radicals in Islam. They're not Islam. And that was McMaster's thing and some others. Oh, no, that violence doesn't go along with Islam. Well, they've never read the Quran. They don't know anything about it. So, or they're just parroting what they've been taught in the establishment institutions that are really NWO run anyway and deep state run. So I just wanted to bring that up because hooray for Trump for doing that. It was a great thing to do. And I wanted to kind of end, again, I know a lot of you don't like this, but my video yesterday that I did talking about Vault 7 and Isaiah 28, not so much because I don't look at the comments, but a lot of my friends that view these things and people of other religions and faiths and all of that, I got a few messages from them and they're saying, hey, why do you say that? Everything is about this type and shadow thing and all of that. And you really misinterpreted what Isaiah 28 is. No, I didn't. And I'm gonna show you now. Historically speaking, what occurred at that time was the Assyrians were threatening to invade the northern kingdoms of Israel. If you remember, there was the northern 10 kingdoms, which were called the kingdom of Israel, and then the southern kingdom, which was called Judah. Anyway, so historically speaking, and in the scriptures, The euphemism for the northern kingdom is Ephraimites. Very true, very true. That's exactly right. And what happened eventually was, of course, this prophecy in Isaiah 28, is actually a dual purpose prophecy. And I would love to take you through the whole thing to show you why, because there are other things that are said in there that pinpoint that particular thing, like the deal with Koresh that I did a couple months back, whenever it was. The point being that Isaiah was saying, yes, Ephraim, the northern kingdoms, you're going to go away. Yeah, you are. And that's just tough luck because of the way you've been. And of course the Assyrians did come down and actually defeat the northern kingdoms and carry them away. Interestingly though, the idea of Samaria and Ephraim and the northern kingdoms and the tribe of Joseph and all of that, that's interesting because a lot of people will say, well, all of the Ephraimites and northern kingdom, the kingdoms, the other Josephites, etc., were carried away and weren't in Palestine at Christ's time, and so the Sumerians were just people that came back. Well, there's a lot of disagreement on that. Suffice it to say that Ephraimites probably were still, as a matter of fact, I'm certain that they were, because of some things that are said in Josephus, not just Samaritans that had come in and claimed that title. There were actually Ephraimites in the area later too. But regardless, there's type and shadow in Isaiah, and those people who resist that, I'm going to go back and look at my video from yesterday and see how I explain the situation with Ephraim and Jerusalem. And what I want to do right now is something out of Jeremiah. And I think this will probably really explain it to you. In 23, in chapter 23 of Jeremiah, and it's in verse 20. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to show you this. He's talking about all of these things that are going to happen, and the people and the wickedness and all that kind of stuff. And then he talks about this. He says, behold, this is starting in verse 19, behold, a whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a grievous whirlwind. It shall fall grievously upon the head of the wicked. Kind of parrots this thing in Isaiah 28. And then it says this, the anger of the Lord shall not return until he have executed, until he have performed the thoughts of his heart. In the latter days ye shall consider it perfectly. The latter days. So there was a prophecy for the time of Jeremiah, and it would be considered perfectly in the latter days as well. And that's basically what Isaiah is doing in those verses. Isaiah 20, well actually very much of Isaiah. All right, I guess that's enough for today.